Welcome to the Survivor to Thriver show with your happiness expert, Samia Bano. Are you a survivor of abuse or other trauma? Are you tired of feeling stuck, silent, and stressed all the time? This is the podcast people from all over the world join in to learn exactly how to stop suffering and start living with more inner peace and joy. Are you ready to eliminate suffering from your life and transform from a survivor to thriver? Then congratulations, you are in the right place. Let's get started.
Hey, welcome back to the Survivor to Thriver show. I ended yesterday's episode with a very important question. The question was, how do we act in the face of our fears? And as promised, I'm going to pick up right there today. And I'm going to share with you the lessons that I have learned that answer this question. And I'll tell you right now, what I've discovered is that there are three main components to our being able to act in the face of our fears. And these three components are, I'm going to call them 1, 2, and 3. But just know that this is not a linear process. It's not like first you do 1, and then you do 2, and then you do 3. No. Pretty much all the three things go hand in hand, and they work together, and you pretty much need to implement all three at the same time. You need to bring all these three things together in order for you to be able to actually go ahead and move forward and act in the face of your fears. Okay, so the first component is this idea of acting with courage. And I'm going to tell you more about what I mean by that and what it entails later today. Okay, that's what we're going to focus on pretty much for the rest of the episode today. Component number 2 is to act with compassion towards ourselves as we feel afraid. And number 3 is, even as we may be feeling afraid and we are wanting to take action and starting to take action in the face of our fears, is to shift our focus on generating peace and joy. Okay, so those are the three components: acting with courage, acting with compassion, and focusing on generating peace and joy. So I'm going to go ahead and, for today, focus the rest of our time on exploring this idea of acting with courage. So the way I define acting with courage is literally, it's about acting in spite of our fears. So it's when you feel the fear and you do the deed anyway. You feel the fear, but you do the deed anyway. That is the definition of acting with courage for me. Okay? Now here's the thing, that when you're feeling the fear, that fear may be so intense that you can't even imagine doing the deed as you are experiencing the fear. So if you think about it in the context of my story that I've been sharing with you, remember, it took me 12 years to get to the point of breakthrough where I was able to tell my very first person the truth about my being a survivor of child sexual abuse. Right? And the reason it took me 12 years to achieve that breakthrough is because for the vast majority of those 12 years, the fear that was keeping me silent was so strong and so intense that I couldn't even imagine breaking the silence. I couldn't even imagine it. Literally couldn't even imagine it. But what happens is that, see, when I went into that silence in the first place, it was a defense mechanism that a part of me that I'll call the protector within was employing. The protector within me employed this defense mechanism of throwing me into the silence to protect me from getting hurt by anyone again, right? It was like, okay, if we become silent, we shut everyone out, then no one can hurt us. So it had this really good intention, and it actually even was effective, right? To a large extent in its aim of protecting me. The problem was that this method that it employed of protecting me had a very unfortunate side effect. That while the silence protected me, the unfortunate side effect was that it also left me isolated. And I became so alone that, I literally got to a point where I just couldn't bear it anymore. The loneliness was too much, and I just couldn't take it anymore. And so I reached this tipping point where my desire for connection and meaningful relationships became even stronger than my fear of getting hurt again. And so once I reached that tipping point, then the first thing that happened was that I was actually able to begin to imagine myself talking to somebody, telling somebody. And when I first started the imagining, it wasn't very realistic. Like the ideas that I had in my mind of who it could be and what circumstances and what scenario it might be under which I'd be able to go and finally break the silence and tell the truth to somebody. They were very highly unrealistic scenarios and ideas that came to me. But then, you see, I kept at it, the imagination. Like, it didn't stop. I kept going and kept imagining, and I got to a point where I realized, oh my gosh, I figured out an actual plan that's like a realistic plan, that's a doable plan, and I can take action on it. Right? And then I got to that point where I was actually able to go ahead and take action on the plan that I had formulated. Right? But if you remember, in the episode when I talked about breaking the silence, even at the moment when I was walking in to meet with the counselor that I was intending to go and talk to and share with, even as I walked into her office to talk to her, I was feeling the fear, and I wasn't sure that I'd be actually able to do it, right? So it's like when you have, that's why it's so necessary to act with courage. It's because in situations like this, we may never be able to completely eliminate our fear. So we have to just make this commitment, this decision that, no matter what, even if I'm feeling the fear, even as I continue to feel the fear, I'm just going to do the deed anyway. I'm just going to feel the fear, but I'm going to do the deed anyway. And that is a decision that we have to make, a commitment that we have to make, an intention that we have to set, right? A commitment, an intention to act with courage. And you may not be ready to make that commitment and that intention yet. You may still be going through a phase where the fear is still too overwhelming. The fear is still larger than any other desire or need or want that you have. And if that is the case, that's okay. That's okay. Right? It took me 12 years to break through and get to that point where, the fear was no longer the most dominant experience, no longer the most dominant need that I had, right? And so what happens if you are in this stage where you're not quite ready yet to make the commitment, make the decision to act with courage? Well, then that's where the second component comes into play. The second component of how do we act in the face of our fears, and that is to act with compassion with ourselves. Okay, so since that is the second component, I think this is a really good place for me to stop the episode for today, and then tomorrow we will pick up talking about the second component for how we can act in the face of our fears. Alright, so for today, remember, the first component is to make the decision, to make the commitment, the intention to act in spite of the fear, to feel the fear and do the deed anyway. So the first thing for you to do is to actually determine where you're at. Are you still in a place where the fear is too powerful, too dominant for you to be able to make this commitment? Or are you now in a place where you can make the commitment? Okay, so just figure that out for yourself. Just think of like one challenge that you're really struggling with, and figure this out for yourself. Where are you at in terms of how have you reached that tipping point yet or not, with where your level of fear is relative to your other need or desire or want? Okay, and that will really help you to see where you need to focus your attention, whether it's on component 1 or 2 or 3 of this process of how we deal, how we act in the face of our fears. So do that right now. Take some time to do that right now. And if you find yourself struggling with it, you know you can reach me. You can connect with me, and I'm here to help you through that and serve you in any way that I can. So just go to my website at www.academyofthriving.com, and through our contact us page on the site, you'll be able to see multiple options for how you can connect with me. And until I see you tomorrow, I wish you lots of peace and joy. Oh, and by the way, one last thing. The show is now on iTunes. So if you have an iTunes account, please go to iTunes and leave us a 5-star rating and help others find this show more easily.